workshop.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council, and the community. I'm Maz Bozerginia, Public Works Director and City Engineer. I'm here with Denise Hutton, the Associate Engineer for the City of Half Moon Bay. And we are happy to be presenting this item and having this workshop tonight. Just a quick introduction. The Fat Oils, Grease, and Sand program is actually has been a requirement.
Before you start, Maz, I need to take roll call.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I apologize.
Councilmember Brownstone?
Here.
Councilmember Rohrbach?
Here.
Councilmember Reddick?
Here?
Mayor Penrose?
Here. Do we do the Pledge of Allegiance or not till the 7 o'clock?
Not till 7
meeting?
o'clock.
Thank you.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Maz.
Welcome to all the members of the public here.
Thank you. My apologies for jumping the gun there. So again, we're here to present tonight the Fat Oils, Grease, and Sand workshop. This program has actually been something that's been a requirement for the Regional Water Board for a number of years now. It had been in the previously been administered on occasion by staff with this Mid-Coast Sewer Authority. Over the last couple of years, the city's been taking on a more prominent role on administration of fats, oils, grease, and sands with our local businesses. And we're here tonight to talk a little bit more about that and make it a little bit easier for folks to know what those requirements are. So with that, we'll start, and I'll turn it over to Denise.
Hi, good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. Tonight we have a workshop on fats, oils, grease, and sand, amending the Municipal Code Title 13, Water and Sewer. So the city's sewer codes was adopted in 1962. It's been amended several times since then. Our current project is to add a section 13.22, fats, oil, grease, and sand. We're proposing this update to help prevent sanitary sewer overflows, to protect the public and private property, to reduce sewer system maintenance costs, and to comply with state board, water board requirements. So we have an overview of our presentation tonight. We'll be talking about what is fog, what's fog look like in the sewer collection system, why should we have a fog ordinance, who's affected by the fog ordinance, the prohibitions and regulations of the ordinance, pre-treatment for fog, and administration of the city's fog control program.
Can you wait just 1 minute? Our screens, oh, they're fixed. Sorry. Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. So what is fog? So in the sewer collection system, fog stands for fats, oils, and grease. And that can come from animal or vegetable sources. It's a long chain carbon and hydrogen molecule. It's a real long chain molecule. It's really a sticky molecule, and we call them triglycerides. And they, in our sewer collection system, they come in two types. There's the dispersed grease and the floatable grease. So the dispersed grease, if you can imagine, dispersed grease is like little globulates of fat, and it's kind of evenly dispersed throughout the material. Some examples of that might be like here on the slide, we got mayonnaise, peanut butter, and dispersed fat, certainly in milk, just kind of in there. And then the floatable greases, those are kind of like the obvious ones. That's like, olive oil, vegetable oil, Crisco, and salad dressing are common floatable grease oils. So fog gets into our sanitary sewer system predominantly through our sinks. It gets into our sewer system through our sinks and our dishwashers and any equipment that's hooked up to the sanitary sewer system. So over time, when these fogs enter into our pipes, these sticky fog fats, they stick to themselves, they create grease balls, they stick to the sides of the pipe, they collect on the sides of the pipe, and more sticks on. And so they can become obstacles in the sewer system, big enough obstacles that they can create blockages, significant blockages that can lead to sanitary sewer overflows. So fog in the collection system can be very expensive. It's very expensive to clean up a sanitary sewer overflow, whether it's on private property or in public property. And having fog in our sewer collection system increases the city's maintenance costs. And those costs, get paid by our sewer rate, by our customers. So what does fog look like in the city's sewer collection system? So this center photo here, that's actually a CCTV photo from one of our pipes. And you can see that the fog is collecting along the top of the pipe. It's because, fog, the fats are floating along the top of the effluent. And so this is kind of like the beginning of the problem. It'll start collecting on the pipe. It'll stick to itself. More and more will collect. And for example, some of this might drop off the pipe and land into the effluent that's flowing. It becomes what we call a fog boat. And these globs of fat sort of, make their way. They sail down the sewer collection system. And here is a photo on the left of, actually, these are 2 fog boats that were taken out of our collection system. We have an 18-inch pipe that these were taken out of. And they were just about to cause a pretty significant obstruction. So that's fog in the pipes, but we also get fog in our structures, in our sewer system. So our pump stations become, repositories for fog. The photo on the left is a pump station. Our sewer manholes become full of fog. You can see in the center bottom photo, fog in the channel of a sewer manhole. It builds up and collects, and it can actually block the outlet of the manhole. And so then you get an overflow out the manhole. So what do those overflows look like? Here's a few sanitary sewer overflows. The one in the right-hand top is on private property. The other 2 are on municipal lands. One is sort of out in a field. And then the other here on the left-hand side is an overflow that is pretty significant because it's close to a storm drain. So that is what fog is and what it looks like in our sewer collection system. I'm wondering if anybody has any questions about fog, dispersed fog. Yeah, really don't want to go too far into that. Okay, so 65% of the sewer overflows in the nation-wide are caused by fog deposits. So in 2006, the State Water Resources Control Board passed an executive order requiring that all wastewater management systems greater than 1 mile in length develop a sanitary sewer master plan and report sanitary sewer overflows. Another requirement is that if there is a problem with fog in the municipal sewer system, that the municipality prepare and implement a source control program. A program that, addresses the fog at the source. So in conjunction with the executive order from the board, we have the California Plumbing Code. And the California Plumbing Code supports the installation of source controls for the authority having jurisdiction. So why a fog ordinance? Well, certainly we want to reduce blockages and overflows in the sanitary system. We want to reduce maintenance costs. We'd like to protect public and private property. We'd like to protect the environment. And we would also like to codify our legal authority to enforce these regulations for fog discharge. And also through the ordinance, make it more clear to the folks that will be, making our regulations more clear so that folks can understand the requirements of fog management. So let's take a look at the proposed city's fog ordinance. We'll be looking at who's affected by the ordinance, the rules and regulations of the ordinance, and the administration, and an introduction of something new for the city, and that's a fog waste discharge permit. Don't have the effective date yet, it's up to the council, but I would like to say at this time that all of this information and more is on the city website under the Public Works Sewer folder, and there's brochures there, there's posters, there's lots of information, copies of the draft ordinance, and we have a QR code there for folks who want to go visit that site if you've got any questions. So who is affected by the fog ordinance? So I'm just going to read this. All food service establishments, food manufacturers, food processors, and commercial and industrial businesses and other entities with the potential to discharge wastewater containing fats, oils, and grease, sand, and other insoluble waste into the city sanitary sewer system. So who would that be? That would be restaurants, grocery stores that prepare meat or prepare processed food, meat markets, hotels with restaurants, hospitals with restaurants, schools with cafeterias where they prepare the food on site, churches with kitchens that prepare on-site meals for people, daycare centers like the senior center has a big kitchen and they serve food there, and they've got a fog, they would be covered by the ordinance. Cafeterias, automotive repair shops because they recycle oil. We want to make sure the oil doesn't get into the sewer. And then just here, who's excluded from the ordinance? So limited food service establishments are excluded. So a definition of a limited food service establishment, they're not considered food service establishments when they're engaged only in reheating, hot holding, or assembly of ready-to-eat food products. So a limited food service establishment just, reheats, hot holds, maybe they'll put together some already cooked food, and they are considered a limited food service establishment as long as they don't discharge fog into the sewer system. Other folks that are excluded from the ordinance are private individuals, residential dwelling units, private dwelling units, and living quarters. So what are the prohibitions of the fog ordinance? So basically, it's just don't put fat, oil, and grease into the sanitary sewer system. So that's the big no grease, just don't do that. Other prohibitions include don't add chemicals to your to emulsify your fats so that they're liquid and then they become hardened. You know, don't pour hot water down your drain to dissolve fats because they'll harden later in the sanitary sewer system. Don't put food scraps into the with garbage disposals and food grinders. Don't use those and discharge into the sewer system.
I would also add, these are good little BMPs, best management practice for your own kitchen. Maybe not for the sanitary sewer system, but for your laterals. So definitely good information in general.
Yeah, and the limited food service establishments should follow these. You know, you should wipe your pots and pans before you put them in the sink. Wipe out with a towel or with a paper towel. Clean your cooking utensils and equipment before you put them in the sink. So the ordinance also, so those are the prohibitions, and the ordinance also establishes some regulations, and those are best management practices for the kitchen facilities, pre-treatment of the effluent, and establishing the fog waste discharge permit. So what are some best management practices? It's basically wipe down your dishware before you put it in the sink or in the dishwasher to clean. Wipe down your food storage containers. Wipe down your serving ware, your cooking ware, your pots and pans. Wipe them all down before you put them in the sink. In the sink, have a food strainer so that no foods go down the drain that carry fats with them. If you do have a spill in your facility of fats, clean them up using a spill kit that might have like cat litter in it that'll absorb the oil, and then you can just throw it away in the garbage can. Be sure and teach your employees all of these management practices so that you know that your employees are helping you comply with the ordinance. And another best management practice tool is pre-treatment of the effluent before the effluent reaches the city's sanitary sewer system. So pre-treatment is typically in the form of grease control devices. There are a number of different kinds. There's grease interceptors, which are usually larger units, and they're installed underground, typically outdoors, outside the building. And then there's these smaller grease traps, which are installed in the kitchen itself. These grease traps are connected to the kitchen equipment, and the grease traps can be installed, under the floor, or they can be installed above the floor level. Looking at this, if we go back, Moz, looking at this interceptor example, so the effluent comes in on the left-hand side, and the blue that you see here, that's the fog, that's the fats that's floating on the surface. And then down here at the bottom, those are solids, that precipitate out. And then what you have coming out the outlet then is going to be, clearer water with the grease trap, with this interceptor separating out the solids and the fat. And this is the same concept for these grease traps. Okay, it's kind of the same concept where it's just holding the fats and the solids. So the larger grease interceptors, this is kind of what they look like. This example is a 1,000-gallon grease interceptor. You can kind of see the scale there. It's on the truck. Those are like 4 by 4 by 8 feet long. And you dig a hole, you put them in the ground there, and you connect your plumbing up to it. The only plumbing that can be connected to this is your grease-laden plumbing. You can't connect any like toilet water or, shower water doesn't go through this interceptor. This is just, for your kitchen equipment. Here's an example of an interceptor that's been installed in concrete. And then over here, we have an example of an interceptor that was installed in a landscape strip. So other pretreatment is the grease traps, and we got some photos here of some above-floor grease traps. You can see them there connected to the sinks. This one's right underneath the sink. This one is a little bit more complicated plumbing. And then the larger one, that's a grease trap under this sink, but it's been installed under the floor. And here's another one that is installed under the floor, grease trap. So what we haven't talked about is yellow grease, yet another grease. So yellow grease is cooking oil that's used in these deep fryers. And, they put them on the griddle. It's cooking oil. And these, because of this equipment isn't hooked up to the sewer or the interceptors. This equipment you usually clean by hand. And so they'll put these in containers and store them in approved containers, usually outside the building. We encourage that because there are more and more opportunities to recycle these fats and oils, and so we encourage this pickup by waste haulers. And then auto repair shops, just real quick, so they also, have used oil, and they're part of the program. Our inspectors go and make sure that they're putting their oil in these approved containers outside their building, and that they have a waste hauler that comes and takes the oil and disposes of it properly. So are there any questions before we go to the last section of the? Okay, it's rocket science. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the waste discharge permit. So there's going to be an application and a fee, and then followed up by inspections of the facilities. And there'll be an initial inspection that will look at the facility, make sure that that the information in the application is correct, make sure that everything's all plumbed correctly with that initial inspection, and then that facility will be set up for annual inspections after that. Some of those inspections might require follow-up depending on compliance and the situation at each facility. This application, this fog permit, is proposed to be renewed annually, and the application is signed by the owner to ensure that the owner understands the requirements of the fog requirements and ensure that the owner is responsible for compliance. So the application is one of the new things. The restaurants that have had inspections in the past have never had to fill out the application and sign it and say they understand and all of that. So the application, in the application, we'll ask the applicant to describe their operations, what it is, how many meals they prepare a day, what kind of meals, and especially important is the equipment that they have in their kitchen facility. The type of equipment, the size of the equipment. Do they have, 3-compartment sinks? Are they using griddles? Are they using deep fryers? So all of this is supposed to be captured in a sketch. There's check boxes and then also a sketch. in the application that we're asking to sort of just sketch their kitchen. So it could be a hand sketch, or if it's a newer facility and they happen to have the plans, like tenant improvement plans, that's great, then we can just, look at their plans. But some of these dischargers that have been doing this for years, and we don't even have a map of their kitchen. So they could make a sketch by hand, and it could just be just as simple as this. We just want to know where their sinks are and if they have a grease trap or not. The application will also identify the responsible party who our inspectors should contact when they come on site to do inspections. So the city has, in our master fee schedule, we have a fog certification fee. It's currently $55, and we've never used it because we've never had a program to implement the fee. And but it is in the master fee schedule. In 22-23, our fog inspection costs. So we had 86 facilities that we inspected. We had to come back and do some follow-ups. We had about a 10% non-compliance rate. And so there were some follow-ups with a total inspection cost for that year of about $32,000. So the average inspection fee was about $370 a year. We looked around at some of the cities in San Mateo. It wasn't an extensive search, but we looked at some of the cities in the county. Most of the cities that have a fog program do charge an annual fee. Listed here are the annual fees that are charged by these cities. All of the information on the website, explains that these fees don't really cover their actual costs either. And then we see that Belmont has a inspection fee as well for their initial inspection, in addition to the annual inspection fees.
It's interesting that Belmont chose to do that, but I think I can understand, because that first initial inspection and kind of the rollout of the permit is a little bit more laborious than ongoing and annual inspections.
And so what are the inspections? So here in this top row series is an inspection of a underfloor mounted grease trap. And then we have a grease trap that's under the sink here above the floor. And here on the left is inspection of an interceptor. Now, what are they looking for is what we call the 25% rule. And when we looked at that interceptor diagram earlier, we saw the fats at the top and the solids at the bottom. You want to add that up, the depth of the solids and the depth of the fat can't be more than 25% of the total depth. So that's why it's got these measuring tape here, and it's, even the inspections are lengthy, the annual inspections. What else do they look for in the inspections? Well, they're annual inspections. So the facilities are required to keep records of what they've done for the year. How the facilities are required to keep a record of their cleaning schedule, name the person who cleaned the trap, and identify the quantity of grease that was removed from these grease capture devices, and importantly, where they just ultimately disposed of the grease that they removed from the capture devices. They need to provide their waste hauler records. This is one of the things that we look up at the auto shops to make sure that they're properly ultimately disposing of the grease that they've been storing in those bins. So how do our facilities, what is the measure of compliance for these facilities? It's basically do all the things that we just said. It's you do your best management practices, clean your grease trap, keep a record of your cleaning, dispose of your grease properly, train your employees, to be mindful about handling grease and oils that could enter our system. So we do look at those records in our inspections. So with a violation, let's say the inspector gets there and the trap looks fine, but they have no records. What have they been doing this last year? That would be a violation. They haven't kept record. If the inspector gets there and the grease trap is full and overflowing, that would be a violation. So the first violation is a written notice of noncompliance, and the facility has 15 days to make a correction. Second notice is 10 days to make that correction, and third strike, then the issue goes to code compliance, which is handled under Title IV of our municipal code. There's also a remedial repair and abatement section, which is also handled by the Title IV, that owners of food service establishments that contributed to an SSO are required to reimburse the city for cost of abatement and repair.
If I may just add, so that, yes, if we get to that code enforcement item, then there is an administrative fine that could be levied against a potential business for noncompliance. It's about $1,000, I want to say.
I'm not sure.
I think it's $1,000 per violation.
Through the Title IV.
Mm.
So again, the ordinance, a copy of the ordinance is on our website. Our next steps are to continue our public education and outreach. Then the more formal steps would be to schedule a first and second reading of the ordinance, ordinance implementation, and then ongoing support for our businesses. Are there any questions? Yes, please.
I'm not sure what this would look like, but I was wondering if there's any way, consideration to build some incentives into folks who keep less than 25% of gunk in their units. So maybe, you know what I mean, like a 20, I don't know what exactly the ratio, but if it's exemplary, a 25% decrease maybe in their fee.
I think we can certainly look at that. I know that there's been opportunities where businesses have been doing really well, and they've asked for a reduced number of inspections. So that's one thing where we can reduce the frequency, maybe not annual, and maybe we go to a different rate of inspection. So there's definitely opportunities there, and that's something that we'll look at as far as our administrative policy that would go hand in hand with our ordinance.
Do we have anyone from the public who'd like to make a comment? Is there anyone on Zoom?
I don't see any hands raised, Mayor.
Okay, we'll bring it back to council for discussion.
I think it's a good idea, sitting as our representative on the sewer authority. I know that it's a significant problem, or has been. It's improving. So I think it's the right thing to do to protect the environment. And it reduces, by being more protective and proactive, it reduces, catastrophic costs or, future costs in terms of, abatement. So I think it's a good strategy, and I'm glad you're bringing it forward.
Great. Any other council members?
I agree with Debbie.
Yeah, I would also like at some point in the future to have a discussion on how do people in their households get rid of grease and fats. I mean, I have my own particular method of doing it, but I think there are a lot of people that say, oh, gee, there's no way I can do it. I've got bacon fat in my pan, and I don't have the room in my freezer to freeze it. At any rate, good suggestions on how we can help households do it would be fun. And it was a wonderful presentation, very thorough. Thank you.
You know, that's a very good point Mayor makes. I think a lot of folks scrape plates into disposal versus garbage cans, and because they don't want the food smelling in there. I'm not exactly sure how to incentivize different behavior, but I'm pretty sure that's a in fact, I think I might know a person who does that sometimes. So, but now I'm thinking about it, because you focused on the drain on the left, you know, to have a little catch. But, you know, sometimes you just, or whoever else is doing this, just scraping away in the disposal, and you feel like, yeah, it's just obliterating it, atomizing it, and no problem. But actually, it creates worse, especially stuff that's meat, grease, you know, all that. So maybe we can figure out some education, but also some easier ways to have a different behavior. I'm not sure on that. So,
Good point. You know, maybe free catches for your kitchen sink, like during our sustainability days, like out at Smithfield, pass out the free sink catches. I think that would be a good incentive, speaking of incentives. Yeah.
Yeah, great. I think that the education part of it is the most incredible, and I think giving people hints on different ways to handle it would be very, very useful. So we might get the recycle people to help us with it.
Those are great feedback and great suggestion on the residential side. I can certainly look at bringing that back with additional information for our residents.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Great. I know how much it affects our sewer system. It's a real struggle.
do you find inspection of residential storm sewer pipes have a lot of issues?
Storm drain pipes or
Yeah.
sanitary sewer pipes?
Yeah, storm pipes, things that can flood, get so gunked up that they flood.
Well, so we make every attempt to to not commingle the sewer with the storm drains. And we're usually very successful at that, unless there's an overflow. So we haven't seen any buildup in the storm drain pipes.
And I would, just because of the way our conveyance and collection system is, you get a lot of these businesses that have the fog portion to it that actually goes through some of those residential conveyance pipes in order to get to the treatment plant. So it's really hard to tell where the source is coming from, but obviously our food establishment businesses generate more than a residential unit.
Back in the day, a lot of people changed their own car oil. And somehow it did end up, their local corner sewer. But maybe that doesn't happen so much anymore, so good.
Yeah, that's definitely, that's one of the main items on the illicit stormwater discharge. So that is a violation separate from the sewer system. Certainly, it's been something that's been decreasing over time, but yes, back in the older days, there was quite a bit more concern with regards to the oils getting into the storm drain system. That's been a little bit better with regulations and oversight and education.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Denise. She did a great job on this one. This was hers.
Thank you, Denise.
Thank you, Denise. Okay, I think that ends our FOG presentation. We will take a 9-minute break and come back at 7 for our regular city council meeting tonight. Thank you.